Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to the worship service of the First Unitarian Church of Hobart. My name is Barb Langle, and I participate in the life of the church by serving on the Board of Trustees. We are a religious community of people with diverse beliefs and shared values. Our diverse beliefs are expressed in our 6 sources, and our shared values are expressed in our 7 principles. Both can be found online at uua.org. Together, we strive to grow spiritually, build community, and live our values in the world. I have a few announcements. This first one is from Michelle because she couldn't be here today. It's come join us for an amazing evening of music and fun for a 150th anniversary fundraising concert on January 13th, featuring our own Jeremy Jacobson, where is he? I'm going over there. And Catman Dog. Free appetizers, cash bar. This is a 21 and older event. Doors open at 5 p.m. for appetizers and drinks. Music starts at 6 p.m. Tickets are on Eventbrite. See Ashley for more information on how to get on that, but there's a link in the congregation's Facebook page, but Ashley could probably give you something with the link if you're not on the page. Okay, I have a couple. On behalf of our congregation, FIA is collecting used or new coats and blankets for homeless veterans. Please help us keep the veterans warm this winter. There is a box in the parish hall for your donations. The membership ministry, along with Pastor Tom, will be conducting an orientation session for anyone who is interested in becoming a member. This is next week, next Sunday at 12:30. If you need a packet or have any questions, please contact me after the service. And for those that already have your packets, please bring them next week. I'm really looking forward to this. I really, really am. Cindy?
Thank you, Barb. I asked to do a live announcement. I'm very cognizant of the fact that this is very last minute because opportunity came up at the last minute, but I'm hoping this is the beginning of a long association. So for the next week, if you want to drop off a new or used toy into this black box outside in the parish hall, it will go to the South Shore Toy Project. This is a community collection of toys for the past 14 years, and toys are distributed in Lake County to children in need for Christmas. If you are not able to drop off a toy, but you want an opportunity to volunteer putting these toys together, cleaning them up, making sure they get distributed, there are also opportunities for that. I'll put out in the parish hall. Again, I understand that this is Sunday and they're collecting on Saturday. If you bring things next Sunday, I'll make sure they go where they need to go. But I thought, why not take this opportunity to make the holidays a little bit brighter for children in need? So thank you.
And if you want to bring any in, Ashley is here from 11 to 4 on Thursdays. So if anybody can drop anything off then, that'd be great. We are currently streaming our services online. The joys and sorrows portion of our service, however, is private, and we will take a break during that time. Other than that, the service will be recorded and will be available for future viewing on Facebook, YouTube, and the church website. Now please let your Facebook and Twitter friends know that you're attending worship with hashtag First Unitarian Hobart. Silence your devices. Take a deep breath. And another. And join us in the spirit of reverence.
In the bleak midwinter, frosty wind made moan. Earth stood hard as iron, water like a stone. Snow had fallen, snow on snow, snow on snow. In the bleak midwinter, long ago. What can I give him, poor as I am? If I were a shepherd, I would bring a lamb. If I were a wise man, I would do my part. Yet what can I give him? Give my heart. In the bleak midwinter, long ago.
Would you join me, please? Can you hear me? Yeah. Would you join me, please, in the lighting of the chalice? The words are in your order of service and on the yellow pew cards. If I can remember how to do this. That's why they have matches up here. For people who can't remember how to do that. We gather this hour as people of faith, with joys and sorrows, gifts and needs. We light this beacon of hope, sign of our quest for truth and meaning, in celebration of the life we share together.
These words are coming from 702 in the Gray Hymnal. Where hate rules, let us bring love. Where sorrow, joy. Let us strive more to comfort others than to be comforted, to understand others than to be understood, to love others more than to be loved. For it is in giving that we receive, and in pardoning that we are pardoned.
And now please rise in body or spirit for our opening
join us for the affirmation of faith? Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is a sacrament. Service is its prayer. And this is our covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
So we Unitarian Universalists are bound together by not creed, since we don't have one, but by covenant. The covenants that we choose to make together. Our covenants aren't about trying to be perfect. We know that we are both keeping and breaking promises at the same time quite often. We keep our covenants to the best of our ability, but we also break them despite our best efforts. And we are also always learning to do better. It is inevitable that we will fall short, but covenant is inherently forgiving, and when violated, seeks restoration and renewal. Our UU covenants may be reinforced by forgiveness and grace when we stumble, forget, mess up. And they hold us as we find our way back to right relationship through reconciliation. So I will read 3 parts of our congregational covenant, and I invite you to respond to each one of them with, may we forgive ourselves and each other and begin again in love. For all the ways that we have neglected to expand our spiritual growth and faith in action, may we forgive ourselves and each other and begin again in love. For all the ways that we have not committed our hearts and minds to building a community of caring, acceptance, and reconciliation, may we forgive ourselves and each other and begin again in love. For all the ways that we have not actively worked to build trust and respect in our community, may we forgive ourselves and each other and begin again in love.
We realize that not everyone can attend in person. We extend a special welcome to all of you who are joining us virtually, and thank you to our tech team for making live stream and recording possible. For those in the sanctuary, please take a moment to greet your neighbor by waving your hands and letting the warmth of your smile fill the space between us.
Please be seated. Some of you I saw last week, some of you I haven't seen for a little bit. Great to see all of you again. Some of you I've never seen before, and it's good to see you also. So in between the last time that you were here or the day of your birth, there have been things that have happened. Some of them have been beautiful and pleasurable and delightful, and some of them have been at the other end of the spectrum. They've been really challenging, that have weighed us down or feel like they're tearing us apart. And so I extend an invitation to all of you as I come around the sanctuary with the microphone to share a joy or a sorrow that you have on your heart so that we may hold it with you. And I just ask that you share your name with us so that we know who you are. Does anybody have a joy or a sorrow to share this morning?
There was a monk who was asked by his abbot to deliver a precious golden statue of Buddha to a neighboring temple. The Zen monk was waylaid by robbers who took not only the golden Buddha, but also the cart used to transport it, and along with that, the very clothes of the monk himself. On top of that, they beat up the monk and left him unconscious by the side of the road. Coming to his senses in the middle of the night, the monk looked around, realized that the statue of the Buddha was gone, the cart gone with it, and so were his clothes. He looked up and saw the moon shining in full brilliance above, lighting up the mountain scenery in the background. At this, he said, thinking of the robbers who took the precious Buddha, "Ah, look at that. I wish I could have given them that beautiful moon as well."
And now let's please remain seated for our middle hymn, number 1009, in your teal hymnal, also on the screen. There are three parts to this. I will be singing them throughout in different times, and you should just feel free to sing whichever part you would like. And we'll sing it for an indeterminate period of time.
So we are in this series that is coming to a close today on stillness, on pausing, on contemplation. As we are now fully in this holiday season, as you can tell by the tree right beside me, perhaps the most important time of year to practice this stillness, this pausing, this contemplation, when there can be a feeling of hecticness in the air. And this can be a time of great joy for some, a time of great pain for others, and a mix of both for many. I believe I've talked briefly before about my bicycle riding past, back when I used to own a bicycle. One of the things that I really enjoyed doing was going on critical mass bike rides, which is still happening to some extent, but there was a time there, sort of in the 90s and early 2000s, that it was very much thriving, and there'd be cities all over the world where one Friday a month, oftentimes the last Friday, sometimes the first, depending on what city you're in, people would congregate on their bicycles at a particular place in any given city, and then they would just ride en masse through the streets. And this was a mixture. It was born in San Francisco, and it was sort of a mixture of protest and a parade and a festive gathering. There were no permits for this, but it was just a bunch of people on bikes riding around. And there was it's just this really fun atmosphere that I'd love to get to. I did it in Boston a few times. I did it in Seattle a few times. And there was this one time when I was going to head out to Critical Mass, and I got on my bike when I was living in Boston, Massachusetts, and I was this small little street in Allston, which is this neighborhood of Boston just on the other side of the river from Harvard. And I pulled out of the driveway there, and there was this car that almost hit me. And I yelled at the person driving the car, and the person driving the car yelled at me, and then started to drive off. And then I pulled out my phone to take pictures of the license plate, and then the car screeched to a halt, and the person driving got out of the car. And so I got back on my bicycle, and I rode away as quickly as I could. Which I was somewhat proud of myself for my quick thinking. You know, there was somebody almost hit me, I stayed safe, I didn't get hit, and I thought to take out my phone and take pictures, and when the situation became dangerous, I saved my skin and took off, so I thought I had acted fairly well. But that night, when I was on the Critical Mass bike ride, it had a very different feel than any other Critical Mass bike ride that I'd been on. All the other ones that I'd been on, there'd been this festive excitement of we're all doing this joyous thing together. And this one that I was at that one night, there was a feeling of uncomfortability to it, of some kind of menace in the air. And I couldn't put my finger on what it was until I realized the only thing that was different was the experience that I had had when I'd first left my house, that I was still carrying inside of me, that my nervous system was still poised to respond to. And so everything else that I was seeing that evening felt tinged with that, oh shoot, somebody's going to get out of the car and come after me. And so I ended up leaving the ride early to go home after I'd been with it for a little while, because I realized I just wasn't in the space to actually participate in it in the way that I would have liked to. The way that we see the rest of the world is conditioned by our internal environment. That David Whyte poem that I read last week, Sweet Darkness, goes, when your eyes are tired, the world is tired also. When your vision has gone, no part of the world can find you. Time to go into the dark, where the night has eyes to recognize its own. There you can be sure you are not beyond love. The dark will be your home tonight. The night will give you a horizon further than you can see. You must learn one thing. The world was made to be free in. Give up all other worlds except the one to which you belong. Sometimes it takes darkness and the sweet confinement of your aloneness to learn that anything or anyone that does not bring you alive is too small for you. Most often we live our lives in ways that do not bring us alive. We get caught in cycles or patterns or habits. We work the job that we hate, or we keep switching from one job to the next, searching for the perfect one, or we stay in the relationship that doesn't work for us, or we keep leaving relationships never satisfied, or we spend all our time on the things that we think we should do, or on the things that we would prefer to do, and miss what would actually be fulfilling on a deeper level. As Jerry Ashmore said a couple weeks ago, we are all conditioned beings. The way that we actually live our lives can tell us so much about that conditioning. What do we actually practice? Our beliefs come to the surface. What we actually believe comes to the surface, not by choice, but just by habit. If the way that we habitually live our lives involves us being harsh or cruel to others, then there's some underlying belief in there somewhere about what the world is like that we're probably reacting to. If the way that we habitually live our lives involves us smiling and trying to be happy, then there's some underlying belief in there somewhere about what the world is like that we're probably reacting to. If the way that we habitually live our lives involves us trying to not be noticed by others, then there's some underlying belief in there about the world, what the world is like, that we're probably reacting to. Because Unitarian Universalists don't have a creed, sometimes that's taken to mean that we can choose to believe whatever we want, but our beliefs are usually not something that we choose. They're indicated by how we live our lives. In the litany of Eugene Gendlin, he writes this: "What is true is already so. Owning up to it doesn't make it worse. Not being open about it doesn't make it go away. And because it's true, it is what is there to be interacted with. Anything untrue isn't there to be lived. People can stand what is true, for they are already enduring it." Myra Seek a couple weeks ago talked vividly about facing unending restlessness and discontent, pain, sorrow, grief, and anger, fear, anxiety, dread, and insecurity that would cause her to do things that she would regret. An unending existential crisis, reels of past actions or inaction in her head as an ongoing form of torture. What would yours be, your internal environment through which you see the world? Maybe it's similar to Myra's, maybe it's totally different. What is that lens through which you see the rest of the world that shows up in how the rest of the world shows up to you? Jerry, a couple weeks, talked about cultivating within ourselves that sacred space between stimulus and reaction, this developing capacity for stillness in the face of our own discomfort, to neither collapse, allowing it to go on, or to add to it through our own aggression, is to develop the capacity to keep spirals from continuing and continuing and continuing. To take a stand in small or large ways in any context, even in this church, if something feels off, is to be open to ourselves and possibly to open it up to others as well. Are we living our lives in ways that demonstrate that we are accepted just as we are? That we truly believe that in our bones? Are we living our lives in ways that demonstrate that we are free to participate in the fullness of being just as we are? And that we truly believe that in our bones? Are we living our lives in ways that demonstrate that we see and accept the limitations of others just as they are? And that we truly believe that in our bones? Are we living our lives in ways that demonstrate that a greater love and a longer lasting experience underlies it all, and that we truly believe that in our bones? I said earlier that we don't have much choice in our beliefs, but we do have some. It just takes practice. I talked a couple weeks ago about the greatest bliss that I ever felt was on this meditation retreat. It wasn't the joy of watching a good movie or reading a good book or wonderful time with a friend or romantic partner. The satisfactions of each of those can be beautiful or profound, but this bliss that I encountered on this meditation retreat was just a completely different category. It was this place of peace that I got to access that autumn morning on the meditation retreat. Stepping out onto the walking path and feeling all the world shimmering about me. That was my first true understanding of a blessing. Often when we talk about blessings, we Unitarian Universalists can get caught up in this question of the source of the blessing, whether it's coming from a God or from something else. But that's really not the most important part of what I'm talking about this morning. You can imagine whatever you like as the source. The important part is the blessing itself. The joy of being a part of creation. That is itself of such great worth, without needing any special adornment. We've been blessed just by virtue of being alive with one another for however long we've got. May we remember to notice and be grateful for the true sources of refreshment and grace that are here for us. It may take practice. It may take letting go of your current beliefs, letting go of your imagined self. But with practice, you can start to remember that you are good. You are good. There's that part in Genesis where God says, this is good, and this is good, and this is good. And there's this idea of original sin that's taken off over the past couple thousand years. But in the actual book of Genesis, the first part, the original part, is the you are good part. The sin part, the missing the mark part, only entered the picture when that original blessing was forgotten, when it was taken for granted. That forgetting is so easy. Trying to sit and meditate for the first time, usually the forgetting happens almost immediately. We sit, we close our eyes, and suddenly our brain is off to the races. We lose track of that original blessing. It's not something that can be achieved, merely just come back to. But it's so hard to do. It's so hard to come back to. Hence, the practice. Over the past few weeks, I've invited us to do these little 1-minute practices. I'll invite us to do one more of those this morning. And so just however you find a comfortable position to just sit for 1 minute, I'll keep a timer for that. This morning for this practice, just hold the sentiment, you are blessed, just as you are. Or literally, I am blessed, just as I am. Whether you want to repeat that or just sit in the essence of that for the next minute. You are blessed, just as you are. Properly understood, practices such as meditation don't help us to achieve a blessed state, but rather to finally rest in a baseline truth about existence, that we are blessed, carefully setting aside all that distracts us from that. One thing that Jerry also pointed to a couple weeks ago is when people first start meditating, there's often a sense that I'm supposed to sit down and rid my mind of all thoughts. Begone thoughts. But this attempt to banish the thought, to drive it away, is actually just another form of attachment, just like holding on to the thoughts themselves. This wrestling with non-attachment desire is something that various schools of Buddhism have different thoughts and ideas about that people have debated. One of my teachers is a Buddhist who really emphasizes that whatever is there, just like in that Eugene Genlin litany, whatever is already there is already there. What is true is already so. So if there's a desire, if there's attachment that's coming up, being with whatever that desire or attachment is the practice. Just allowing it to be there. There's also a sense in Buddhism of this wonderful, beautiful, no thought, transcendent, I have evolved and become an enlightened being. In order to do that, it's helpful to be a monk. The folks who are not in the category of monk are often in the category of a householder who lives a regular day-to-day life and manages things as they do. And given that they engage in the practice to the extent that they can, then that's a beautiful thing. They haven't prioritized devoting all of their life to the monk lifestyle. And so it's not necessarily about total non-attachment, but allowing the thing to be what it is and seeing what unfolds from there. I brought up boundaries last week, and this is key to how I think about boundaries. Often when we think about boundaries, it's about pushing things away. Here is a line that you shall not cross. If you cross this line, then this will be the punishment, the thing that will happen to you. This is the request that I'm making of you. And I would invite us to think about boundaries a little bit more proactively than that. In a stillness, in a place of stillness, we can notice what we need, what we desire, what we prefer, and in that noticing, what becomes possible is an invitation. When we're with a partner, hey, I would really love it if you would put your head on my shoulder right now. When we're with a friend, I could really use some encouraging words right now. When we're at work, hey, could I take some more time for this report? It's feeling like it's really stressful, the amount of time that I have, I could use some more. That invitation being the first part of setting a boundary. And as long as there's a request for somebody else to act in a particular way, that you can request whatever you want of them, but ultimately you have the power around the boundary of what you will choose to do. For instance, if you're with a partner, or let's say a family member, there's somebody in your family, a sibling, somebody you don't live near, whenever you talk to them on the phone, they start complaining about their job, and you really just can't stand listening to them complain about their job anymore. Maybe you've noticed the boundary that's there. Maybe if you were truly honest with yourself and truly honest with the other person, you would say, hey, I actually don't appreciate listening to your stories about how much you don't like work. And so if you bring that up next time, and I ask you to stop and you continue talking about it, then I will hang up the phone. That is a clear boundary. What you've desired, the action that you will take if the thing doesn't happen. And the beautiful thing about that I want to tie back into this you are good piece, is that your boundary can be whatever your boundary is. It doesn't need to make sense to anybody else. It doesn't need to be justified by anybody else. It doesn't need to fit to any universal standard, because it is whatever it is. And because you are good, there's a value to that. Because you have the ultimate agency over what that is, there's a beauty and a divinity to the boundary itself. This time of year, our ancestors had recently brought the harvest in. The fall was this harvest time for many, a time for gratitude, a time for thanksgiving. When we are truly grateful, when we feel blessed, how do we live our lives? When we feel secure in ourselves, how do we live our lives? How do we live our lives when we feel gratitude flowing through us? Look at that. I wish I could have given them the beautiful moon as well. Probably not like my experience on that bike ride. And maybe more like my experience on the meditation retreat of more smiling, more patience, more generosity. There is a thirst within us for a greater love, for a fuller wholeness. And for centuries, Unitarian Universalists have understood that thirst within us to show us a truth about the universe, that we humans are a sign of the desire of the cosmic order for that greater love, for that fuller wholeness. When we embody that pearl beyond price, it doesn't mean running away from anything, from pretending that things aren't so, from the icy hard ground of suffering, violence, injustice, and deceit, or from the desire for things to be different than they are, or for our very desire to run away, but rather embodying that pearl beyond price means relaxing our grip on our labels of who we are, of what should be, and opening ourselves to who we actually are and what actually is, and inviting others to join us in that. Being willing and able to, as Myra said, walk into the storm, and in the storm open our hearts to what is there. Even just the simple fact that we have some shoulds going on, or that we desire for some things to happen, or that we desire for other things to not happen, and then offering that to others. I noticed that I have a desire for this thing. For me to join you in this way, I would need this. In order for this to work for me, I would need you to do this. That is how we reconstitute the world. So over this coming week, I invite you each day to take just a minute to see what your in the present moment experience is like. What truths does it reveal to you about what you believe, or what's important to you, about what you need? What is already so for you? And in this listening, in this paying attention, in this pausing, may we learn to better bring love to where hate rules, where sorrow and joy live. May we find a stillness and hold it and let it carry us. May we seek the essence and hold it and let that carry us, where we can be sure that we are not beyond love, because we know that the world was made to be free in. May we give up all other worlds except the one to which we belong. Sometimes it does take darkness and the sweet confinement of our aloneness in those minutes to learn that anything or anyone that does not bring you alive is too small for you. May your joy spring like a fountain, and may love lap like an ocean, and even in the midst of our pain, your tears, may your strength be as massive as a mountain. May we embody the gentleness, the goodness, and the truth within ourselves and with others, now and forevermore.
Thank you, Pastor. Now is the time in our service for the offering. We give to remind ourselves of how many gifts we have to offer. We give to remember that we are part of something bigger than ourselves. We give because we believe in music and friendship. We give with the faith that together we have enough. We are enough. The money in the baskets goes to sustaining the mission of the community, and the money in the cups goes to a charity chosen by Faith and Action Ministry. This is for the minister's discretionary fund this month, and I see there are volunteers. rise in body or spirit and join me in... What? No? It's not time for him? Oh, sorry. Yeah, closing hymn. Number 100. I'm like, wait a minute.
It's my fault. I was telling Jerry.
Oh, I'm confused. Number 100. I've got peace like a river.
Back next week.
Please rise in body or spirit.
The closing words are in 597 here, and the italics if you read in response. Never does hatred cease by hating in return.
Only through love can hatred come to an end.
Victory breeds hatred.
The conquered dwell in sorrow and resentment.
They who give up all thought of victory or defeat
May be calm and live happily at peace.
Let us overcome violence by gentleness.
Let us overcome evil by good.
Let us overcome the miserly by liberality.
Let us overcome the liar by truth.
please in extinguishing the chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of humanity, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together in heaven.
Please join us for fellowship in the hall, and we'll also be starting a discussion about the worship service this morning and the series in general right here in 15 minutes. So I'll do an announcement once we're ready to go with that. If you're interested in joining the discussion, please grab a chair so we have enough chairs for everybody.